Good.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much for being here with us today. Welcome to Mar Talks and our Revolutionary Mothering series. I'm Carrie Cavers, founder of Moms Against Racism Canada, and it is March 2021, and I'm here where I'm living as an uninvited guest on the unceded ancestral lands of the Lekwungen-speaking peoples, now known as Victoria, BC. The sun is shining, the cherry blossoms are out, and it's a very beautiful spring day. So I feel so humbled to be here talking to our guest today about building a better future while occupying the stolen lands of the Indigenous peoples who have stewarded these lands time immemorial. And today we are talking about revolutionary mothering. And so I wanted to share this quote with you from the book with the same title, Revolutionary Mothering. This quote is written by Alexis Pauline Gumbs. It says, "We are looking at mothering as an investment in the future that requires a person to change the status quo of their own lives, of their community, and of the society as a whole, again and again and again, in the practice of affirming growing, unpredictable people who deserve a world that is better than we can even imagine. And many people do the labor of mothering who would never even dream of identifying as mothers, even though they do the daily intergenerational care work of making a hostile world an affirming space for another person who is growing mentally, spiritually, physically, and emotionally." And I felt that quote was very fitting for our guest today. So I'm very excited to introduce to you Andreas Robinson. Andreas is an Indigenous African Nova Scotian and the CEO of two for-profit social enterprises, Infinitus Academy and Limitless Media. A social entrepreneur, Andreas is a front runner of social justice change and education, particularly with youth and young professionals, as he sees them as the catalyst for future growth. Andreas is trained in open space technology, deep democracy and design, and systems thinking. His work is rooted in emotional intelligence and change management through a human-centered design process with an emphasis on unlocking group dynamics and leveraging the lived experiences in the space. He is a graduate of Phillips Exeter Academy, the prestigious world-class preparatory school, as well as the Sobey School of Business at St. Mary's University. He was selected as a Queen Elizabeth Diamond Jubilee Scholar and completed an internship developing and implementing programming on social entrepreneurship, business, and innovation at the University of Technology in Jamaica. Andreas is a former recipient of both the Black Business Initiative Entrepreneur of the Year Award and the Delmore Buddy Day Learning Institute's Ancestral Roots Business Entrepreneur of the Year Award. He is also a former Team Canada gold medal winning football player. So over the past 4 years, Andreas has directly impacted and engaged more than 4,000 people, ranging in age from 6 to over 75, through programming, events, and workshops. His mission is to empower youth, individuals, and communities to embrace their limitless potential. Hi, Andreas. Thank you for sharing your time with us today.
Oh my goodness, welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to join, really quickly as well as you did. I want to do a land acknowledgement, as I would say, kind of in my fashion. So definitely, chiming in from the unceded land of the Mi'kmaq people as well. This is I guess maybe it might be debatable, but on the outskirts, definitely in Preston Township, traditionally Preston Township. So in Dartmouth, what's known as Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, we have in Nova Scotia some of the largest Indigenous Black communities. And so specifically highlighting that because as well as there's the intersection between I guess the wider Indigenous persons of the land and the Black communities here, but also people from the Indigenous African Nova Scotian communities have been here in these lands for over 400 years. So like my grandparents and stuff like that, like over 8 generations, and so as we recognize and call into, I think call in our magic and celebrate the discussion in the spaces. It's important as well to pay homage to the ancestors in all of the forms. But no, I'm excited and to join the discussion. And I guess the only thing I would add as well, for all of our work, it's all done through, right, an Afrocentric lens. So an Afrocentric approach, and making sure that we're grounded in, what that means, bringing a little bit of extra magic.
That Black magic. Black joy, Black boy magic. You totally have it all. So Andreas, I know when I sent out the email, I imagine it was a little bit weird receiving it, saying, hey, we see all the amazing things that you're doing, and we think that you embody revolutionary mothering. And so I want to acknowledge that for you to accept this invitation, it takes a certain level of emotional intelligence to do that. So thank you for accepting. And as with all of our other interviewees, we're asking everybody the same 3 questions. And so the first, if you're ready, is what does revolutionary mothering mean to you?
Oh, it's gonna be a theme. I might be a little bit of a broken record today, but no, I mean, even starting it off, tying it into my story, right? Like I was raised by a single mother, so for me, that's such a huge part of my experience, especially being someone of African descent. My mom's actually white. So that dynamic of being having multiple ethnicities, multiple cultures, is so tied up in me, because even in this conversation, like being a revolutionary in any of these spaces, or even addressing racism, like you don't have to be from one ethnicity. You just have to be somebody who's ready to take action or be involved, right? Mobilizing. And so for me, like that paints the path and highlights how possible, how tangible it is, because, as a reality, like to be a revolutionary, but especially to, revolutionary mothering, I think it's one, like being raw, being authentic, and you have to hold space. And it doesn't matter whether you're an actual mother or you're, a mother figure, or you're somebody who's supporting. You're supporting and you're holding space for the raw and real conversations. Navigating these spaces, especially in 2021, European 2021, we're definitely deeper in than that. But when we look at what's going on globally, we look at the pandemic, we look at anti-Black racism, anti-Indigenous racism, or any of these wider conversations, right? As it manifests in communities or in our individual lives, we need to have safe spaces. We need to have people in our networks, people in our tribe, so to speak, that we can go to for support, that we can have outlets to be able to, the easiest way to say it is to be able to take the armor off. We go through every day, people of African descent, people, who are marginalized. For me, the language that I use is all oppressed peoples have heightened emotional intelligence. The disconnect maybe is fully aware of what's going on and maybe just not able to take action on what they're internalizing. But the reality is, what you're feeling. And so that's, about being a revolutionary, and especially in the mothering space, enabling others, right? The co-creation space that we talked about earlier, enabling others to create whatever that, success is on their terms, holding space to allow people to essentially do what we're doing, from our ancestors, standing on our shoulders, right? We're leading, and, leading looks differently, just the same as everyone has their own magic. We all lead, and, based on our styles, based on our lived experience. And so revolutionary mothering definitely will look different, because everyone has to do it their own way. But for me, if you distill it all, it comes back to taking action, holding space and being authentic.
Love it. I don't know if you were able to catch any of the interviews that we've posted thus far, but there definitely seems to be a common theme happening around that, with the holding space and living authentically and having those conversations. So I love that. And I think like our next question that we ask is, in what ways do you practice revolutionary mothering? And I think probably you do this just as your own self as a person, but definitely do this with the organizations that you have. So I would love for you to speak to both, if you could.
I'll do my best. I'll do my best to keep it concise. But absolutely, I think maybe just to even start, following your lead, like personally, and for me, again, like I believe, and I gotta keep reinforcing it. I believe that everybody's a business. Everyone is not an entrepreneur. That is not what I'm saying. But everybody is a business. Every individual, whether you're 4, 30, 25, or 75, everyone invests in themselves daily. We invest our time, energy, awareness, attention, and money into things every single day the same way. So we have assets and liabilities. Is it adding value or taking away from us, slowing us down or helping us grow? And so when we think of, that, the intersection of personal and professional, it's a fine line. And so I believe, for me, it's like in my life, pushing to celebrate the same things and implement the same things. And so through our business, really focusing on, potential, right? The whole mission is to empower youth, individuals, and communities to embrace their limitless potential. And so for us, that's focusing on change management. So how do people deal, or how do organizations, how do communities deal with change, transitions, emotional intelligence, so the awareness, so self-awareness, situational awareness, but then the ability to leverage to the context, so the lived experience, being able to have the awareness to reduce the barriers in the space and actually leverage the value that's untapped in spaces. So we always focus on communities, because I believe that anytime humans come together, it's a complex environment, but we create communities. So it could be a small team, government department, that's a community. And so in our, for our forum to really zoom out, like human potential is human capital. And that's, in the same sense, that's human evolution, right? That's what parents are for. We're put on the earth to evolve and to, help our future generations move forward. And so as a business or in the professional space, that is what we're focusing on very directly. How can we, highlight and create some of these streams, so to speak, that enable people to grow, from their early stage, but to become professional versions of themselves and to create success on their own terms. And so for us as a process, everything we do is heavily focused on co-creation. And so, one of the big pillars that we have, and it's broken record, but I believe that everything is a scale, is a spectrum. And so, the long and short is that, on the spectrum of structure, which in the European context is very heavily emphasized, to no structure and chaos, the sweet spot is infrastructure. And so that's where you have a foundation, that's where you have a North Star and somewhat of a container. And so I believe that humans, the same way we're businesses, we're skyscrapers. And the most important part of a skyscraper is not how high it is, it's how rooted the foundation is. You can only build up as high as you have a strong foundation. And so for us, that's really what we focus on. As we're looking at human potential or human evolution, is really on how we can enable others to mobilize on their terms and to use the skills and experience that they have, whether it's as an organization or as an individual, to be able to translate that and on their terms create success.
That's fantastic. And I really like how you bring in that visual of the skyscraper and the foundation, and how revolutionary mothering, no matter what your role is, as someone who is like a parent of a child, or like you say, building communities, that it is so much to do with that foundation. And that, when we're looking at Black and Indigenous families, how that foundation has been eroded and just cracked open intergenerationally, and that the work that you're doing is so critical to resetting that foundation and rebuilding it and helping to make it solid cross communities. So I think that's fantastic. So our last question, and I feel like we could chat for hours on end, but our last question is specifically for the people who are watching today, what advice would you give them in wanting to be allies and dismantlers of racism in particular?
Oh, and we will talk for hours. We will continue this conversation. This is just the initial bit of the dance, first couple steps. No, I think in two parts. So for me, the same way I'm coming at it, like I really believe that, and I say this in all spaces, like everybody has a duty of care. And so, when we realize that, we have to zoom out and again, connect the dots, it's the constellation. It's not just one of the stars that's in it. And so, again, for us, like I'm really trying to bring everything back to the human potential, human capital. When we look at Canada as a whole country, there's not in this day and age, 30 million, 36 million people is not a whole lot. When we look at any of the individual provinces, they're not overly big compared to some of the world leaders. And so that's the reality. When we look at any country that doesn't have the human capital by numbers, we have to figure out how do we unlock all of the potential that we have within our borders to actually compete in a space that will maintain us or allow us to just be relevant. Because a lot of the rules and cultural things and practices that we have within our borders, when you don't have a position of leadership, you actually get influenced by outside forces. And so Canada especially is in a position heading into this digital era where we will continue to get influenced. So everyone has to realize how big the game is that's happening. And so, for every individual, community, or organization, as I, advocate and we consult the same way, there is a duty of care that everybody has, whether you are a public or private organization. When things are said in the public space and they are not normal, they're not dispelled. So whether it's racism, whether it's any kind of misogyny, any discrepancies, things that we know are not okay or acceptable, when it's not addressed in the public setting that way, it's refined and it's continued to be okay. So the reality is that when anything happens, everyone has a duty of care to speak up on it, to take action. That action and how they speak up looks different because everyone has a different platform. Everyone has different power and everyone has a different set of, their privilege. So those kind of 3 Ps. And so the reality is that that's how everyone can take action to dismantle, systemic racism or inequalities, is by figuring out what is your platform, what is the power that you have, and what is the privilege that you have, and mobilizing around those things. So, especially with our youth, we focus a lot, or our young professionals, on breaking out the different types of power, right? So your human power. I mean, power is the same as capital, but just to make it easy for everyone, we'll get rid of the business or the academic words. We have human power, which is your skills, knowledge, abilities, and experience. So that's your potential. Social power is your connections. That's the relationships that you have. It's the different social people, organizations, interactions that you have on day to day, right? Then you have economic, political, and cultural. And everyone has all of those. And so you have to figure out how to mobilize those things. Because whether it's racism, all forms of inequality stem from economics. It's a business game. And so if you don't address them the same way, you're okay. So being on the sidelines is perpetuating the problem because you're not putting your skin in the game. And so that's really what I would say, is for everyone to evaluate what their, the 3 Ps, their privilege, their platform, and their power, and mobilize around those 3.
Well, and even just like for the people who are beginning their journey on this, understanding that they have those things too, that they have power. Because I think as we kind of spoke about before, in the Eurocentric view and the very individualistic, there's winners and there's losers. And the narrative, I think a lot of people have accepted, is that they don't have power. And so recognizing that, like you say, in all those different arenas, that they do have some level of power, and mobilizing what they do have. I think that is fantastic advice. Thank you very much. So again, thank you. Thank you for being here with us today. Thank you for accepting my invitation to come and talk. It's been a pleasure, and I definitely look forward to sharing this interview on our platforms and having your wisdom and perspective be shared with all of our members and our followers. And just in general, thank you very much for all of the revolutionary mothering that you do. The world definitely needs these radical acts of love. So thank you. And for those who are watching, if you, to find out, not if, but to find out more about Infinitus, head to their website, liveinfinitus.com, or follow them on social media at Live Infinitus. So both Facebook and Instagram. Thank you so much, Andreas.
No, thank you so much, Carrie, for having me. I'm excited to continue along on the journey, support however possible, and look forward to seeing this, however cut up or not, you know.
Oh, it'll just be played. It was perfect how it is.
Awesome. I'm
But
ready.
thank you. And I definitely, I look forward to collaborating again in the future. Somehow we're going to do great things, build more community.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited and I'm looking forward to it. I definitely will follow up. And once you have the chance, definitely, send me the links and would love to see and support the rest of the way.
Perfect. Thank you. Have a great day.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Bye.